It gets worse, believe it or not. The next part really just blew me away. Angie Vogt says, and I quote, "If I were relying only on reason, I would make my daily decisions based on what gave me the greater immediate gratification. What is the purpose of doing the noble thing, the self-sacrificing thing, if it weren't for a greater good beyond myself?" End quote. She seems to think that this is a problem with reason itself. It is not. If she thinks that relying on reason would lead her to what can only be described as sociopathic, narcissistic behavior, then this is a problem with her. It is a problem with her reasoning, not all reasoning. I can say with reasonable certainty that there are no gods. Does that mean that there's no reason to rescue Jews from the Nazis? Of course not. That's unbelievable. We don't need religion to motivate us to save Jews from Nazis. We should still do it because it's the right thing to do, and I think that definitely qualifies as a greater good beyond oneself. Next, Miss Vogt manages to contradict herself within 2 sentences. She says, and I quote, "Atheists pretend that there is some objective, agreed-upon definition of good and bad. Who defines good and bad when there is no religious appeal to something greater than ourselves?" End quote. So, there is no objective definition of good and bad. Oh wait, yes there is, and it's defined by religion. This is just so incoherent. Religious believers pretend that there is some objective, agreed-upon definition of good and bad, and it is defined by their ancient religious texts. Do they really want to go down that road? Does that mean it's objectively wrong to eat shrimp? Is it objectively wrong for men to shave their beards? To wear blended fabrics? Is it objectively right to slay your children for disobeying you? No. Any sensible person can see that it is not, and they should recognize that religion is not a good source for objective moral guidance. Miss Vogt says, and I quote, "I believe that even people with no professed faith have an instinctual need to recognize something greater that is beyond themselves. They may not want to call that something God or even supernatural, but atheists have never offered a satisfactory answer for this timeless human need." End quote. To this I would say, satisfactory to whom? Obviously not satisfactory to her or people like her, but plenty of atheists have managed to find answers and purposes for themselves that are more than satisfactory, without any recourse to the supernatural. To imply that atheism is somehow solipsistic or ignorant of anything beyond oneself is just inaccurate. I would invite Miss Vogt to look into philosophies such as secular humanism, which affirms the inherent worth and dignity of all humanity, recognizes the importance of this life, encourages our ongoing search for truth by using reason and empirical evidence, and invites us to make this world a better place for ourselves and our children. All of this recognizes something greater beyond oneself, without any need for a God. And though we have no gods, we do have each other. And that is more than just satisfactory. It's more glorious and inspirational than any dogmatic religion could ever hope to be. Miss Vogt's editorial goes a bit downhill from here. She thinks this atheist display is pitiable. Well, what's really pitiable is when people will only do the right thing because their religion tells them to, especially because this leaves them and the rest of us completely vulnerable to whatever happens when their religion tells them to do something awful. What's really pitiable is when someone's faculties of reason are so atrophied or absent entirely that they treat myths as reality and denigrate the very concept of reason itself, while deriving their moral guidance from ancient religious texts with no regard for the consequences. Miss Vogt then cites a book on the psychology of atheism, written by Paul Vitz, a Catholic psychiatrist. I'm sure there's absolutely no conflict of interest there, kind of like letting Shell and ExxonMobil do the research on global warming. Vitz wrote another book declaring that psychology itself is a secular cult, so I have to wonder why he would even bother exploring the psychology of anything. Miss Vogt then asserts that atheism has only existed on our Earth for the past century and a half. What? No. How does she come up with this stuff? It's not as though people are born with some concept of God pre-implanted into their brains. They're taught this concept by their parents and their society. Atheism, the lack of a belief in any gods, is the natural state of things. It's how we all start out. Atheism has existed for as long as our universe has existed, because our universe has no gods. It was not something that had to be invented at any point. It only had to be clarified and defined once people began to believe in gods, because then we needed a word for people who did not. Gods as a concept were invented. The absence of a belief in gods preceded this. By the way, the Indian philosophy of Carvaka recognizes no gods and holds that there is only our physical world, and our perception of the natural world is the best way to find the truth. They did not believe in an afterlife and did not believe there was any soul separate from the body. They believed that human life was composed entirely of natural elements, though at the time they thought the only elements were earth, water, wind, and fire. They also rejected the caste system and held that all people are equal. Oh, and the philosophy of Carvaka originated before the birth of Jesus Christ. Cool, huh? Again, citing the Catholic psychiatrist, Ms. Vogt claims that atheists are resentful and jealous of religious people, and therefore they seek to destroy faith itself. Well, no. Resentful and jealous? How does that work? I hate you so much, I'd give anything to be just like you. Oh, except I'm also going to destroy the very thing that makes you different from me. Yeah, right. I see no reason to be jealous of anyone who evidently believes morality is dictated by an invisible supernatural entity, and if that entity does not exist, then there is no morality. Not only is this wrong, it's dangerous, as has been demonstrated repeatedly. If Ms. Vogt thinks this atheist display is somehow intended to destroy faith itself, she's obviously more optimistic than we are. If anything will destroy faith, it's reason. Reason is corrosive and inherently antagonistic to faith, because reason requires rational reasons for your beliefs. Faith, on the other hand, means saying, I believe it because I just do. I don't need any reasons. I believe it because I feel like it's right. I believe it and nothing is going to change my mind. Obviously, faith and reason are not compatible, and I assume this is why Ms. Vogt is so intent on avoiding any application of reason or recognition of its utility. That's okay. Reason stands on its own merits and has proven its value. It doesn't need her approval. She concludes by saying that Christians should pray for atheists. While they are busy praying, I suppose it will be up to the rest of us to do the thinking, which is probably for the best, as people like Ms. Vogt don't seem to be very good at it.